Welcome to another EDH deck tech. This time it's for Rakdos, Lord of Riots. This is a Demon Tribal deck. It's black-red. It's pretty fun to play now that I've had a chance to test it out. And yeah, suggest it to all people who might want to play some demons and beat face. Basically Rakdos, he's a 6/6. He costs 4 to put out, 2 black and 2 red. And you can't cast him until an opponent loses life. So some of this deck is part of like pressure deck also, things that ping opponents for 1, lands that ping opponents for 1, enchantments that ping opponents for 1, and or spells that'll just like do damage to every player on the table, including yourself. Yeah, so you don't gain a lot of life. Basically you speed everything up in the game in an effort to get Rakdos out early. And as soon as you get him out, basically creature spells you cast cost 1 less for each life your opponents have lost. So if he himself attacks, for example, then that means your creatures cost 6 mana less. And so there are a couple big demons on the end of this scale that are pretty sweet and fun to put out for like 2 or 3 mana each instead of the 7 or 8 that they typically cost. So without further ado, the mana is pretty intensive in this deck because there are a lot of like big demons. So we have 5 basic swamps, 6 basic mountains. If you don't have a lot of dual lands, this may not be the deck for you. The mana fixing is difficult, and card draw is difficult because it's black-red. But with the right cards, I think it's okay. For example, you want to have all 4 cycling lands, so that if you do draw them and you need to draw some cards, you can. Also, I would suggest getting the Fallen Empires lands that will sacrifice for either double red or double black. Usually, you know, I use these in all my decks anyway, but for Rakdos it's particularly important because you do need double black and double red just to cast him. I have both of these Kamigawa lands, the legendary ones that give legendary creatures first strike and or fear. They're pretty sweet lands. There's no reason not to use them, and they're very cheap to buy. Care Keep, you will need to sacrifice some creatures to demons occasionally, so also just to make a defender, you can go ahead and get Kobolds of Care Keep out on the table. These lands in particular will activate Rakdos, so if you do Piranha Marsh, you put it out, say on turn 5 or something, then a player loses a life and you can cast him. Similarly, Stentia Bloodhaul will deal 2 damage to target player. Not only will you activate Rakdos with this, but you could potentially kill somebody because Rakdos does a lot of damage to everyone. Similarly, Shivering Gorge, here's one, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Mystifying Maze, take it or leave it, doesn't necessarily need to be in here. I thought I needed more defense. Tectonic Edge, feel like you should have one. The Vivid lands are pretty good. I don't have the Vivid Swamp or whatever it's called, but I do have Vivid Crag, just to make that black mana if I need it. Again, Helltooth Hollow is just kind of a gamble on my part. Basically, you remove the top 4 cards of your library when you put this into play, and you pick one. If it's a creature, you can play it if everybody's got no cards in hand. There's one creature in here that will start making everybody discard, is a demon, so sometimes you can get that off, I guess. Bajuka Bog's just there to remove graveyards. Beseiju, who shelters all. In case you play against some counterspell decks, your demons are important. You don't want them to get countered. And then we get duels. So I just basically put in as many duels as I possibly could for this deck. So we got Black Cleave Cliffs, Dragon Skull Summit, Rakdos Carnarium, Rakdos Guildgate, Tainted Peak, which is pretty sweet. You can play black or red if you control a swamp. Graven Cairns, I love these little filter lands. Make double red or double black if you need it. And Shadow Blood Ridge. Again, it's sort of like a filter land, but it just makes a black and a red when you put 1 mana into it. Also, for a tribal deck, you can't go without Cavern of Souls if you own one. And then you just choose demons as it comes out and they become uncounterable. And Command Tower. So there's 37 lands total. It's typically what I play in all my decks. And then for red-black, I wanted to get a lot of card draw. So Graveyard Removal and card draw in Nile Spellbomb. Crystal Ball to smooth things out. Skull Clamp to sacrifice little kobolds and other creatures that you have to draw 2 cards off of them. Candles of Ling is a great card for card draw. Basically, you pay 4, tap it, and you reveal the top card. As long as it doesn't match anything else that's in your graveyard, have the same name, then you put it into your hand. So basically, in Commander, nothing will match what's in your graveyard, where it shouldn't. Staffing in, again, draw 1 card every upkeep. And also do a ping, so it's kind of synergistic with the general. Similarly, Sign in Blood, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. You can draw the cards, or you can ping somebody else if you just need to get Rakdos out. Disciple of Bolas, pretty sweet. You had to do some big creatures in here, so if you do need a big influx of cards, you can sacrifice, say, like a 6 casting cost demon, or sacrifice Abyssal Persecutor or something, gain 4 life, draw 4 cards off of them. We have Blood Gift Demon, pings opponents, and also draws cards. A lot of these things help Rakdos out. Reforge the Soul. I don't have the Wheel of Fortune in here, but I do have this one. Next best thing. Greed. Pay life to draw cards. Armillary Sphere. Get some lands out there. Solemn Simulacrum. Similarly, get some more lands out here. Now we're entering into like mana fixing. Burn Offering. You sack a creature to add that casting cost in red or black, whatever you choose. However you choose it. Dark Ritual, also to make black mana quick. Rakdos Signet, Soul Ring, Coalition Relic, which can give you 2 mana every other turn. Gilded Lotus, 3 mana of any one color. So yeah, you need a lot of color fixing in this deck, so I would suggest using all that kind of stuff. Enslave, it's pretty great control magic type spell for black, but it also pings the owner of that creature 1 every turn, so you always have something to A, do damage, and B, activate Rakdos' ability. Hammer of Boat Garden, pretty sweet little 3 damage spell. Late game, you can start returning it for 5 to your hand. I mean, it's pretty expensive, but it's always there, so I play it. Brittle Effigy, in case you need to exile things. Black and red don't really exile a lot, so this is a good alternative. Barter in Blood, sacrifice. Everybody sacrifices while you're getting started, getting ramped up. Slaughter Pact, I just like the surprise element of it, and you can destroy a non-black creature for free. So that's pretty sweet, but then you lose the game if you don't pay for it. Wrecking Ball, destroy creature or land. Chaos Warp is pretty fantastic for planeswalkers and or whatever is giving you problems. Generals maybe, they shuffle it back into the library and then they just replace it with whatever the top card of their deck is. Usually it's a land or a spell or something, so. Terminate. Rolling Thunder is pretty great because you can split the X however you want to. Late in the game when everybody's got low life, you may be able to take 1 or 2 players out. Profane Command, like the versatility of it, you can bring your creatures back or, just do damage with it. Similarly, Earthquake does damage to everyone, including yourself. This is kind of a kamikaze style deck, so you don't really care. Exsanguinate, this is pretty much one of your only life gain cards out there. Yeah, but it's mostly a killer card anyway. Yeah, if you play this deck, you don't really care about winning or losing so much as just doing as much havoc as you can until you leave the board. So we got Spite Flame Witch in that vein. Each player loses 1 life. You can just pump as much mana into her as possible. Plague Spitter, beginning of your upkeep. This deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. When it's put in the graveyard, Plague Spitter deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. So again, this is sort of just pinging things, activating Rakdos. Soul Cage Fiend, each player loses 3 life when this guy dies. Pestilence, doing 1 damage to all creatures and players as long as you have creatures out. Havoc Festival, players can't gain life, and then every upkeep they lose half their life rounded up. Now we have some creatures that are kind of like just repeating. They live through pestilence and whatever. Endless Cockroaches, when it dies, goes to your hand. Ophiomancer, every upkeep, a 1/1 snake goes onto the battlefield. Reassembling Skeleton. Indrixar, Master Breeder. Anytime you cast creatures, you put that many thralls onto the battlefield. If there's ever 7 thralls, you sacrifice this guy, but typically you can make your thralls go do stuff that kills them. Anger, you want this guy to die, so you're happy to sacrifice him, give all your stuff haste. Chandra the Firebrand, great at 1, she can copy one of your big earthquakes or something if you need her, and 2, she just pings, so she activates his Rakdos ability. Actually does damage for an ultimate if you get there. Animate Dead, in case you want to throw a demon in the graveyard, it's potential to do that, or just animate somebody else's. So now we've got some hasty things. We got Lightning Greaves for Rakdos. We got Fervor to let those demons attack the turn they come into play. And then we've got more of our demonic theme coming up right here, this last part of the deck. Demonic Tutor, I feel like you should have him in the deck. Diabolic Tutor is not quite a demon, but he's close. We got another tutor is Demonic Collusion, and you can buy this back by discarding 2 cards. You know, so use this with your Animate Dead, say, or something. Throw a demon in the graveyard, animate it, get a card draw, get a tutor back. Bloodspeaker, fantastic tutor. If you play demon deck, you gotta have this guy. Basically, during your upkeep, you choose to sacrifice him, and if you do, you can get a demon out of your library. And when you get a demon onto the battlefield, well, Bloodspeaker comes back out of the graveyard onto the battle, or into the hand. So he's just recurring tutor for all demons that you might need. This is a really sweet card for Demon Tribal, Mark of the Oni. You just control a creature as long as you have a demon. And if you don't have a demon, you sacrifice it. This is Elbrus the Blinding Blade. Sorry, it's in Korean, but basically you equip it for 1. If a creature gets through, it gives it a +1/+0. If you do damage with it, then it's becomes Withengar Unbound. And you can look him up if you need to. But he's a 13/13 flying, intimidate, trample creature that anytime a player dies, so he's made for a commander basically, he gets 13 +1/+1 counters, which is insane. Yeah, he doesn't stay out long, but you know, it's really fun to try and get him out, which is the whole point of this deck. It's just fun. You got Abyssal Persecutor for a cheap 6/6 flying trampler. You know, you don't have to worry about him living too long. You got things to sacrifice him if you need to. Again, Master of Cruelties. This is one of your really few win conditions, honestly. Other than just doing mad damage to everybody, Master of Cruelties will put somebody down to 1 life, and you can get him out fairly early with all the mana fixing and stuff like that you've got. So he's badass and insane, and yeah, he can definitely kill some people out of the game. Harvester of Souls, some more card draw for you. Also a demon. Anytime a non-token creature dies, draw a card. Nephrox, he's pretty sweet. He's exalted. Pretty much you don't have a ton of creatures, so he'll typically attack alone regardless. And when he does, defending player sacrifices a creature. Here's that card we were talking about earlier where everybody starts discarding their hands. So at the beginning of each end step, each player discards his or her hand if you have Sire of Insanity out. So yeah, why not, right? And Xanthrid, Demon, Flying Trample, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature, and then everybody loses that much life. The only problem is, if you don't have any creatures, then you tap them and you lose 7 life, so what the hell. Here's Reaper of the Abyss. He's got a great morbid ability. He's, again, a flying guy, flying demon. Reaper from the Abyss, if you need to look him up. And his morbid ability is basically he can kill off creatures at the end of a turn and any creature died, which is pretty sweet. Runescarred Demon, a tutor, and a flying 6/6er. Fantastic. A Born Overlord. When he enters the battlefield, you put that number of 1/1 black harpy creatures onto the battlefield equal to your devotion to black, which isn't too hard to get a decent devotion level in this deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, you just sacrifice a creature. Lord of the Void, one of the best demons out there. Whenever he deals combat damage, you exile the top 7 cards of the player's library, and then you can put a creature card from that 7 onto the battlefield under your control. Just control it the whole game. Doesn't matter if he's out or not. So yeah. And then lastly, we got a big old demon here. 9/9 Flying Trampler. Basically, he's pretty vanilla. He doesn't do much other than beat face, and that's pretty much what you want this deck to do anyway. He does have the ability, I guess, if you want to pay 6 life and sacrifice 3 creatures rather than pay his mana cost, you could, but you don't really need to with this deck because honestly, you have enough little mana fixers and stuff that you can cast him, hard cast him pretty easily. So there you go. There's Rakdos, Lord of Riots. You should check this deck out. It's pretty fun to play. Put it together, try it out. It actually is surprisingly effective. It draws cards real well. It fixes mana real well, and it's definitely a threat at the table. for as goofy as it might seem. And hell, why wouldn't you want to play with like tons of crazy demons? Why not? They're so much fun. Thanks for watching. Leave any comments you got on the comment bar or whatever below. Thanks.